Welcome to our Bon Bon Facts podcast with Matt and Joanna. We provide valuable information that affects your everyday life, and for your entertainment only.
Hello everyone. Welcome to our podcast. In the previous podcast, we talked about China's air pollution, toxic soil, and contaminated water supply. Today, we will tell you why you should avoid food from China, and what negative effect China has on California and the West Coast. To end the podcast, we will quote a list of food safety incidents, to give you a better picture of China food safety, and the danger of consuming it. China has become the world leader in toxic food supply, and polluted air. The country has become a byword for tainted food, from cadmium-laced rice, to fish raised in toxic water, and fed antibiotics.
Yes, the problem is that it is impossible to avoid food from China. The United States requires the country of origin label on the majority of food it imports. However, with most processed food, companies are not obligated to label where ingredients come from, only where the food was packaged or processed. Unfortunately, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration inspects less than 2% of incoming goods. Experts say that it is nearly impossible to avoid ingredients from China. You can lower your chances of eating foods with Chinese ingredients by staying away from all processed foods and eating fresh whole foods, such as fruits and vegetables. However, for those fresh produce, you still need to look at the label carefully. I have seen a lot of fresh lemons, Asian pears, and garlic from China.
Let's examine why food from China is so dangerous. China has become the world's most polluted country, with the most degraded environment. Chemical and steel industries have been polluting the environment and the world. China has chosen to neglect environmental protection for profit. Water pollution is another big problem in China. China's filthy water supply further compromises food safety, because the same tainted water is used to irrigate crops and to raise fish in farms. Furthermore, China is one of the world's largest pesticide producers, consumers, and exporters. Overuse of fertilizers and pesticides can leave poisonous residues, and some of these chemicals can cause cancer. Many farmers use banned pesticides too. Fish raised in farms use filthy water, requiring a large quantity of antibiotics to keep them alive. This leaves dangerous residues on seafood, and makes the fish hazardous for consumption.
Well said, Matthew. You just gave the audience an overview that highlights all the current problems China has regarding its food supply, and why eating food from China can be dangerous. This is an ongoing issue that will not go away. Or at least, it will take several decades for China to clean up the environment, soil, and water supply. Let's go back to history. Americans has been consuming a large amount of food from China. Why? Because they are cheap. So, companies make more profits by importing food from China. For example, Chinese garlic would cost a fraction of American garlic. I remember a town in Northern California called Gilroy. In the old time, every time I drove the car up north, the entire town used to smell like garlic. Unfortunately, the cheap garlic from China drove the majority of garlic producers in California out of business. Consequently, they sold their farms to real estate developers.
Joanna, the other day, I did some research to see what Americans have been eating from China, and to obtain some historical facts. In 2011, according to a comprehensive report published by Food and Water Watch, 70% of apple juice, 43% of processed mushrooms, 22% of frozen spinach, and 78% of tilapia that Americans ate came from China. Back then, Chinese food safety made the news when ingredients tainted with the chemical melamine entered the global food supply, including products from well-known brands. Melamine-laced infant formula and dog biscuits that killed many children and dogs were also scandalous and unthinkable. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization, which eased restrictions on U.S. imports, and enabled China to trade more freely with the United States. As a result, Chinese imports have been flooding the shelves of American supermarkets. Unfortunately for American consumers, the World Trade Organization limits the United States from restricting unsafe Chinese imports. This enables food manufacturers to source food ingredients in China, where food safety regulations are weaker. Chinese crops tend to be grown in contaminated soils, and fish are farmed in polluted water. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has done little to address the growing concerns of dangerous food from China. In fact, the FDA only inspects less than 2% of cargo arriving from China. The extensive American corporate relationships and investments in China have created business pressure to allow imports to come in quickly.
Matthew, I've known a lot of Asian friends who have relatives that died from cancer or kidney failure. This is a new disease trend for many people. The Asian diet relies heavily on rice, and rice products such as rice noodles. When I think about rice, I recall rice cereal, rice cakes, or Rice Krispie. Therefore, rice is a staple diet for a lot of people, and many cultures. It is quite disturbance for me to find out that Chinese rice is loaded with cadmium.
Joanna, for your information, some rice is also loaded with arsenic, especially brown rice. The reason that rice contain arsenic, because rice plants can absorb heavy metals from both soil and water. Arsenical insecticides have been used in agriculture worldwide for many centuries. The earliest available records indicate use of arsenic sulfides in China as early as year 1100, and incorporation of arsenic oxide in ant bait in Europe in 1699. They were banned in the United States in the 1980s, but their residues remain in soil and water for many decades. That is the reason why I do not consume a lot of rice. In 2014, the Consumer Report has done a study on rice. It said white basmati rice from California, India, and Pakistan, and sushi rice from the United States have 50% less arsenic than other types of rice. Brown rice has 80% more arsenic than white rice of the same type. So, now, I stopped eating brown rice.
Arsenic is very harmful to the human body. It is associated with cancer and heart disease. I remember watching a crime scene investigation on TV. This woman fed her husband with a small dose of arsenic every day. After several months, the husband died, but she got caught because the detective found evidence of arsenic in the house.
Joanna, you made your case. I am sure she fed her husband a lot more arsenic than the amount in rice. However, excessive consumption of rice, especially brown rice, over a long period of time, could cause adverse health effect. Cadmium is a lot worse than arsenic. Cadmium is a very harmful heavy metal. Cadmium absorbed by the body will concentrate in the kidneys and liver. Cadmium is a cumulative toxin. Due to slow excretion, cadmium accumulates in the body over a lifetime. If too much accumulates in the body, cadmium harms the liver, kidneys, respiratory tract, and bones. It has also been linked to a variety of cancers. Let's go back to your original comment about cadmium in Chinese rice. In Hunan province, factories, smelters, and mines are located adjacent to rice fields. Unfortunately, the Hunan province is responsible for 41% of China's cadmium pollution, when measured by its presence in industrial wastewater. Cadmium is often found in zinc ores and is used in coatings and batteries for cell phones, cameras, and computers. Hunan is also the top rice producer in China with 17 million tons of rice and 16% of the national total.
In 2013, the Chinese government had discovered excessive levels of cadmium in 155 batches of rice, collected from markets, restaurants, and warehouses. Of those, 89 were from Hunan province. Cadmium that accumulates in rice plants gets not only into the rice, but also into animals' meat, since the husks are fed to farm animals.
Well, I think everyone got the message about rice. Also, when we said Chinese rice, we meant rice from some regions, like Hunan province or other areas polluted with cadmium. Unfortunately, we do not have the data for the entire country. However, when buying rice, consumers do not know whether the rice came from Hunan province or not. The country of origin label only lists China. In addition, if the rice has been processed into other forms, like noodles, flour, or cereal, who knows where the rice came from? The key is moderation. Don't eat too much of one thing, but eat a variety of food to minimize risk.
Matthew, let's cover some other topics. How about Chinese chicken imports?
Beware of Chinese chicken imports. Tyson Foods has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into chicken operations in China, including a 60% stake in one of China's largest poultry operations, that produces 3 million chickens every week. Keystone Foods, a major supplier of food products to fast food restaurants, including McDonald's, also operates a chicken processing plant in China. In 2013, the USDA approved import of Chinese cooked chicken into the United States. In 2017, The Washington Post reported that the first known shipment of Chinese cooked chicken landed in the United States. Chicken from China is not required to be labeled. China has not made much progress for food safety since the melamine scandal. The most significant risk in a cooked poultry product is from environmental contaminants, such as bacteria, residues, or intentionally added toxic ingredients, such as melamine found in Chinese infant formula in 2011.
It is good to know that chicken from China will not be labeled.
I guess if it is processed, and sold to fast food restaurants, or added to processed food, as consumers, we will never see the country of origin label. The label may be on the bulk package for wholesalers to see only. This is useless because they know where the chicken came from anyway. Labeling is another topic of discussion. Let's jump to another subject, pollution in China, and how it affects California residents' health. California got pollution from China. China's smog is notorious, and is 10 or more times greater than the World Health Organization's maximum safety level. According to the University of California, Irvine, pollution from China is carried across the Pacific Ocean, and contributes to air pollution in western United States. Powerful global winds called westerlies can carry airborne pollutants from China across the Pacific within days, especially during the spring. Black carbon is a particular problem, because rain does not wash it out of the atmosphere. Therefore, it persists across long distances. Black carbon is linked to asthma, cancer, emphysema, and heart and lung disease. Los Angeles experiences at least one extra day a year of unhealthy smog, because of pollution emitted by Chinese factories. On other days, as much as 25% of pollution on the U.S. West Coast can be attributed to Chinese pollution. Dust, ozone, and carbon can accumulate in valleys and basins in California and other western states. The United States is producing less air pollution, but smog levels are still rising in the western states, because of pollutants released in Asian countries, drifting over the Pacific Ocean. In 2017, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, conducted a comprehensive ozone study. They concluded that the increasing man-made emissions in Asia was the major driver of increased ozone levels in the western United States for both spring and early summer. Rapid economic growth has led to a tripling of ozone emissions from Asia in the past 25 years. High levels of ground-level ozone can be harmful to people, animals, and crops. Ozone air pollution can aggravate asthma, and can inflame and damage cells that line the lungs. Joanna, this is so true. After reading the research paper, I actually look at real-time pollution reported by satellite at this website called purpleair.com. I noticed there were days that I saw unhealthy air approaching coastal cities in Southern California. From Santa Monica, Manhattan Beach, all the way to Newport Beach, especially in the spring. Can you imagine the reaction from those homeowners, who paid millions of dollars for properties by the beach to get unhealthy air from China?
Matthew, being a long-time California resident, I am now considering moving out of state. In recent years, I notice I have a hard time finding fresh air. Plus the UV level is very high in the afternoon, as high as 9. I bought too expensive air purifier for my home. Every time I open my windows to get fresh air, these machines send out a warning, unhealthy air.
Joanna, those golden days are gone. I do not think we will ever get our fresh air back in Southern California. Joanna, before we end the podcast, let's go through a quick history of China toxic food and pharmaceutical products. These incidents happen to products sold in China, as well as those that China exported to the United States and the world. This is to give a good idea of what we just discussed. The following are important milestones relating to food safety incidents. Despite regulation efforts and food safety guidelines from the Chinese government, serious food safety violations and fatal incidents continue to occur. The media has reported repeatedly on a series of food safety scandals involving contaminated and counterfeit meat and fish products, adulterated fruit and vegetable products, illicit cooking oils, and tainted processed foods, spices and herbs, distilled spirits, and pet treats. Other safety scandals have involved a range of pharmaceutical drugs and consumer goods. Foods have been found to be tainted with chemical compounds, unlawful drug residues, additives and dyes, pathogens, and other pests. Some foods are unsanitary. For years, U.S. inspection records show, China has flooded the United States with foods unfit for human consumption. Since 2001, China has driven competitors out of business with its rock-bottom prices. Many American corporations are involved directly or indirectly with Chinese imports. Joanna, to make it easy, why don't you state the milestones, and I quote the food safety incidents?
That sounds like a good idea. We will state the years by chronological order, starting with 2001. China entered the World Trade Organization, which enabled China to benefit from lower tariffs and less trade restriction.
2005, the illegal use of carcinogenic red dye Sudan Red 1 in chicken products in China was a serious violation.
2006, the United States imported $4.1 billion worth of seafood and agricultural products from China, up from $800 million in 1995. 78% of unground, dry ginger came from China.
2006, a pharmacist in the United States was convicted for trafficking in counterfeit Viagra and Cialis from China. 9 people in China died of acute kidney failure from using fake drugs, made by a Chinese pharmaceutical company in northeast China's Heilongjiang province. Chinese officials found excessive cancer-causing residue in turbofish, including nitrofuran and chloromycetin, antibacterial drugs.
2007, 90% of vitamin C supplements, 60% of apple juice, 50% of garlic, and 10% of shrimp in the U.S. came from China. Apple juice imports from China totaled 420 million gallons.
2007, after years of warnings, the FDA blocked the sale of 5 types of farm-raised seafood from China, because of repeated instances of contamination, from banned animal drugs, and food additives. The FDA detained more than 1,000 shipments of tainted Chinese dietary supplements, toxic Chinese cosmetics, and counterfeit Chinese medicines. Chinese tainted contaminated wheat gluten and rice protein, with melamine, causing 17,000 sick pets, and about 4,000 dead pets. Sewage water was used in tofu manufacturing in China.
2007, the head of the Chinese State Food and Drug Administration was executed for taking bribes and failing to properly police the country's food and drug industries. China announced a major food safety crackdown. 2008, exported organic products from China to Europe, the United States, and Japan exceeded $500 million.
2008, Chinese suppliers were blamed for the contamination of heparin in the United States, after reports of 91 deaths, and at least 785 severe allergic reactions. A fatal incident involving melamine contamination of baby milk powder caused 6 deaths, and several thousands of sick infants. Tainted Chinese dumplings with pesticides exported to Japan made many people ill. Tested ginger revealed harmful levels of aldehyde sulfoxide, a pesticide not approved in the United States and China. Eggs were contaminated with high levels of melamine, the toxic industrial additive at the heart of an adulteration scandal in Chinese milk products. 2009,
the number of USDA-certified organic farms in China climbed to 649. The United States imported from China 60% of apple juice, 43% of processed mushrooms, 22% of frozen spinach, and 78% of tilapia for U.S. consumption.
2009, the Nigerian government intercepted 600,000 counterfeit antimalarial tablets from China that were labeled Made in India. A diabetes drug was pulled after samples showed the medicine, which killed 2 people in the western region of Xinjiang, was 6 times more potent than it should have been. Illegal use of clenbuterol hydrochloride in animal feed in China caused several foodborne illnesses.
2010, Chinese food export to the United States tripled to nearly $5 billion. China supplied the United States with 88 million pounds of candy.
2010, dried soybeans and snow peas were dyed with bleach and chemicals to produce the appearance of more expensive peas in Hunan province. The Chinese government found 20,000 pounds of toxic vegetables with excessive pesticide residue in Guangxi Zhuang region.
2011, U.S. garlic cultivation dropped by 30% due to the cheap Chinese garlic imports. China accounted for 7% of the overall U.S. market of frozen fruits and vegetables, and became the 4th largest foreign supplier to the United States.
2011, a factory in Dongguan used fake cooking oil to fry noodles in the production of instant noodles. The fake oil came from another factory that mixed cottonseed oil and flavor-enhanced soybean oil, and marketed it as peanut oil. The adulterated oil could possibly harm human reproductive cells. Chinese officials confiscated more than 100 tons of gutter oil, recycled cooking oil, often scooped up from sewage drains, and gutters behind cooking establishments. A Shuangwei International subsidiary bought pigs fed with meal containing clenbuterol. The illegal additive keeps the animals lean, but can kill people if eaten. 2012, allegations of maggots, excessive bacteria, and illegal additives have plagued China's biggest meat products company, Shuangwei International.
2013, Shuangwei International, the same company that Matt just mentioned about allegations of maggots, purchased American Virginia-based Smithfield Food, the world's largest pork producer, for $4.7 billion.
2014, a U.S.-owned meat factory operating in China, sold out-of-date and tainted meat to clients including McDonald's, Starbucks, KFC, and Pizza Hut chains. Rice in Hunan province contained heavy metals with excessive levels of cadmium, which is toxic for human consumption.
2015, China added new provisions to existing food safety laws regarding penalties for food safety violations and imposed stricter rules for surveillance.
2016, Chinese government uncovered 500,000 domestic food safety violations. 2017, 13 people got methanol poisoning after drinking fake whiskey at a Muse bar in Heiwan, Guangdong province. Guangzhou factory owners were arrested for fabricating cooking oil made from rotting pig carcasses.
2018, United States food imports from China increased to over $6.6 billion.
2019, major Chinese frozen food producer, Sanchuan Food Company Limited, recalled products contaminated with African swine fever virus. The FDA recalled a series of blood pressure medications containing carcinogenic impurity from China. 2020, 9 people died in China after consuming homemade corn noodles contaminated with a lethal dose of bongkrecic acid, a deadly poison that is found in fermented food, including wet noodles and press cake from China, Indonesia, and Mozambique. The FDA asked 5 American companies to voluntarily recall a diabetes drug after the agency's testing found higher than acceptable levels of a contaminant that cause cancer.
Matt, after hearing your list of China food safety incidents, my stomach just turned upside down. The problem is, I cannot tell which products I consume came from China if I go to a restaurant. The supply chain is so long that, perhaps restaurant owners do not even know where their food came from. The World Trade Organization has been a failure for U.S. farmers and has encouraged companies to offshore food manufacturing to places like China, with low wages and weak regulatory standards, putting consumers around the world at risk. Being a World Trade Organization member helps lower tariffs that encourage investments in China and Chinese imports to the United States by multinational corporations. However, the World Trade Organization limits the ability of member countries to establish health, safety, or environmental rules that hinder global commerce. Recent attempts in China to tighten food safety have failed to cure the problem.
Well said, Joanna. I just want to make a few more comments regarding the melamine scandal starting in 2008. According to BBC News, melamine was found in the products of 22 Chinese dairy companies. That is 1 out of every 5 suppliers in China. The scandal caused outrage among consumers and parents, and led to an international outcry about the standards of food safety in China. Chinese milk was also used in chocolate products by American corporations, who distributed their product worldwide. What really disturbs me is that, in 2010, 2 years after the melamine milk scandal, Chinese food safety officials have seized 64 tons of raw dairy materials, contaminated with the toxic industrial chemical melamine. The latest batch of contaminated powder was first found in Gansu province, and traced back to the Dongyuan dairy factory in Min Country, in neighboring Qinghai. This means that traders may have bought tainted milk that should have been destroyed in 2008, with the intention of processing it, and reselling it. Or it could have been a new batch? The fact that melamine was still being used illegally 2 years later caused serious concern. If consumed, melamine can cause kidney stones and other types of kidney damage. Other symptoms include blood in your urine, little or no urine, kidney infection, and high blood pressure.
Here we go again, toxic chemicals can cause high blood pressure. My mother keeps blaming it on salt. Yes, salt is one of them, but it seems like heavy metals and other toxic chemicals are the common causes of high blood pressure nowadays. I wish that more doctors out there would be more aware of toxic chemicals in food to tell their patients. Matt, I was wondering, if people have kidney damage by eating those milk chocolate bars contaminated with melamine, they would never guess that it came from the chocolate bars. Hopefully, they did not eat as much chocolate as babies consuming milk. Therefore, they would never know. I think it is just terrible. It is all about greed over human lives.
This is the end of our podcast. Please be advised that our Bon Bon Facts podcasts are now available on YouTube as well. Joanna and I are in the cartoons. The contents of this podcast are from our book, China, Good, Bad, and Ugly, produced by Bon Bon, LLC.
Please visit our website at abonbon.com for more resources and publication.
You may also buy us coffee by clicking on the support show link. Thank you and have a great day.